we do keep hearing about, I mean, we hear about the new monetary model where deficits don't matter. Unfortunately, we're in a position where I almost wish that was true, because the deficit has been going up much more than President Trump wanted it to when he was running, and it must be on your radar screen. And I just wonder if you think it's mostly due to spending, or it's due to not getting enough revenue to come in, Kevin.
Right. Well, if you think about it, what's going on right now is that revenue for the first 5 months of the fiscal year that's almost exactly the same revenue we had for the first 5 months of the previous fiscal year. And so, the increase in the deficit is not attributable to a big decline in revenue. It's really attributable to a big increase in spending. Now, a lot of that spending is stuff that is kind of fixing a problem that President Trump feels he inherited. There was a lot of readiness problem in the military that required higher military spending. But looking ahead for this budget, we're looking to get ahead of the curve on non-defense, especially spending and discretionary spending. And the president has called for 5% across the board cuts in those things. And there's going to be a lot of budget negotiation going on with Congress now, and I think we're quite hopeful that we make some progress in achieving that goal.
Kevin, the GDP for last year, and I know the White House put out a 3.1 figure, but if you compare apples to apples with the Obama years, that 2.9% is the number to use. And there was...
That's not true, but I won't argue with you over averaging.
Well,
it's just not true. I'm sorry.
I'm the one who has to pay off on the bets. But there are people, that are downright gleeful. I mean, it's sad, because they are gleeful that the economy didn't hit 3. And they're also gleeful that it may not again this year. And my point is that in these budget projections that you're using, do you believe those numbers? Does anyone believe those numbers? Because it looks like we're going to be, at best, maybe 2.5 this year, right?
Well, don't forget that our first budget, we were coming off of a year that was in the ones, and we said that growth would be about a little less than 2.5, and everybody's like, oh, that's crazy. There's no way that happens. And then it came in at 2.6, which was above our forecast. This year we said 3.1, and it came in at 3.1, and gosh, we should have a math seminar to teach people how to do the growth rate the calculations, because the 2.9 number, it's just wrong. It's 3.1. We said 3.1. It came in at 3.1. This year we said 3.2. The first quarter is definitely looking soft. But if you look back over the last 10 years, the average first quarter is about 1%. The average second quarter is about 3%. And I think that we're seeing that seasonal pattern emerge right now as well.
Kevin, Jason Schreiner here.
Hey, Jason. Hey.
How are you, sir?
Okay.
Say, with regard to capital spending, has the administration been happy with the amount of capital spending that's come through as a result of the tax cuts? And if not, are you looking forward to that to come through? I mean, I know we're forecasting that, but we keep waiting, and people are more worried that it's going more to financial engineering than CapEx.
Well, no, you can see it, Jason, in the data that last year in the fall when we were arguing about the tax cuts right here on Squawk, I said that the cost of capital is going to go down around 9% and capital spending is going to go up around 9%. And if you look at the data, capital spending went up by about 9% if you include the intellectual property part of it. And you also have to add the fourth quarter because the expensing was retroactive. But anyway, all in, we got about exactly the predicted effect of the theory. And so therefore we expect it to continue forward because the model seems to be working. And don't forget that capital is this weird thing, unlike consumption, that gives twice to GDP. So we get GDP when we build the factory, and then next year we get the output from the factory when they plug it in and turn it on. If you eat a Twinkie, then you get GDP in that quarter, but then the next quarter, maybe you spend a little more on going to the gym, but it's not going to have the same kind of follow-on effect.
Kevin, have you talked to Lighthizer? I mean, do you see him around? Do you know what?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
What's going on? I mean, what can you tell us? Can you update us on where we are? The markets are following it closely, obviously.
Right. Well, I think the good news is everybody's still talking, and there are a lot of tough issues to work through. Larry Kudlow mentioned last week that he thought that we're making progress on the enforcement issue, which is really the hardest thing. That if you think about it, right? Like if somebody promises in 2015, for example, it looks like President Obama thought that he had a really good agreement with the Chinese that they promised to adhere to, and then I'm not so sure that they kept that promise. And so the question is, respectful of them and not wanting them to lose face or anything, how can we come up with a deal that's good for them and good for us? So they're definitely working on it still very hard. And as Kudlow said last week, it looks like on one of the trickiest issues, they're making progress.
Hey, Kevin, part of your latest report, I'm told, includes things like the economic impact of things like cyber terrorist threats and artificial intelligence. Can you give us a little bit of a hint about what that's all about?
Right. Well, we have a whole chapter. The economic report of the president comes out today. In fact, if Leisman disappears, he wasn't kidnapped. He's going to take it around noon and disappear, and then come out with the 3 numbers we got wrong in 700 pages. But in any case, one of the chapters is on artificial intelligence and cybersecurity, and we, in the AI part, talk about how AI is going to affect your job. And well, maybe not your job, Becky, but most people's jobs are going to be affected in one way or the other, and a lot of people are worried that the machines are going to take their jobs away. And so we go through the economics of that. And on the cyber side, we just look at cybersecurity practices in the U.S. and compare them to best practice. And I think you'll see some food for thought in there that suggests that maybe American business could improve the way they do things.
Kevin, the way that a Democrat describes the tax cut versus the way a Republican describes it both can't be true, I don't think. I mean, it's pretty amazing when you hear Democrats talk about it being just a huge gift to the rich. Now, so far, before 2025, only 20% of the benefits accrue to the high earners. But after 2025, the way it's written, it is going to be 80% accruing to the big earners. Is that going to be possible to change that some way so that doesn't sort of play into what Democrats are saying? And they also say that they say it cut taxes on our wealthy corporations. I mean, that was the whole point.
That was what I mean? They love to create the jobs.
And Obama wanted to cut tax on corporations too, maybe not to 21, but they throw that out there too, just the demagogue. But can it be fixed so that it doesn't?
Yeah, and let me just say first of all that the tax cuts are working to improve wages at the bottom in exactly the way we said a year and a half ago. And if you go to the CEA Twitter account, you can see we tweeted a chart that showed that the wage growth for people in the bottom decile is well north of 6% right now, and it's the fastest for any of the deciles. And so, people in the lower half of the income distribution, their productivity goes up more when you give them a better machine, and then that goes through to wages, and we're definitely seeing it in the data. And that's why President Trump, from the beginning, wanted these tax cuts to be permanent. And of course, Congress being what Congress is, you've got to make some adjustments to get things that can pass. But of course, we 100% support making them permanent. And I got to say that there's a lot of noodling going on in the White House thinking about what Taxes 2.0 might really look like when we get to that point, because I think the tax cuts, especially on the corporate side, have been so successful, generating jobs and growth and manufacturing jobs and wage growth, that I'm pretty sure I could guess that there's going to be another bite of the apple at some point in the future.
I guess I think we had to go, but I was just wondering, do you think there's enough you can say to Democrats where you won't, if you don't give this $9 billion that's in there for the wall, you're not going to get any of the stuff you want? I mean, could you see this budget ever really passing, or are we going to just be business as usual, the way budgets never get passed?
I don't negotiate budgets, and Joe, you wouldn't want me to negotiate for you. I'm just a nerdy economist, but one thing I can say is if you look at the history of it, that the budget process really gets kicked off. It's really the kickoff, and maybe it's a touchback, or maybe they run it back right away. But the fact is, it's the start of the budget process, and the budget process is probably going to be long and involved and tricky. But I think that lots of Democrats and lots of Republicans share the objective of getting ahead of the curve on the deficit.
You and Larry Summers agree on the modern monetary theory not being any good. Maybe you should take another look at it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Larry, I saw Larry writing about it, and
maybe
he's correct.
It works. I don't know. I mean, you guys are always on the opposite side of things.
No, most of the time Larry and I agree. It's just that when we disagree, it's really quite visible.